Prince William has quietly assembled what royal insiders are calling the most sophisticated crisis response operation the British monarchy has ever deployed against one of its own, and Harry never saw it coming. This is not some tepid public relations adjustment or a polite hiring of a communications consultant. This is a calculated, methodical war strategy designed to neutralize every legal threat, every memoir bombshell, and every strategic leak that Prince Harry and his team can possibly throw at the future king. Sources close to Kensington Palace are describing William as a man transformed, someone who has finally decided that the days of absorbing punches without swinging back are permanently over. The secret weapon at the center of this operation is not just a person. It is an entirely new philosophy of royal combat that Harry's traditional approach simply cannot match. William has reportedly engaged a crisis management guru, whose client list reads like a who's who of powerful figures who faced existential threats and emerged victorious. We are talking about someone who specializes in what the industry calls litigation public relations, the art of winning hearts and minds while legal battles rage in the background. And folks, Harry's legal team is allegedly already rattled by what they have discovered about this new approach. One insider put it bluntly to reporters, "William is done being the punching bag. He has decided that silence is no longer golden when your brother is actively trying to burn down your reputation and your institution." Let that sink in for a moment. The heir to the British throne, the man who will one day wear the crown, has made a conscious decision to stop protecting his younger brother from the consequences of his own choices. The gloves are not just off, they have been thrown into the fire. What makes this development particularly devastating for Harry is the timing. This strategic shift comes precisely as Harry's security case against the Home Office faces serious credibility questions behind closed doors. It comes as his memoir sales have flatlined and his Netflix content has failed to capture the cultural moment he so desperately craves. William waited. He watched, he calculated, and now he has struck with a precision that suggests months if not years of careful preparation. Royal watchers who have followed this family for decades are stunned by the transformation. One veteran palace correspondent described it as watching a different person emerge. The William they knew would have absorbed these attacks indefinitely for the sake of family unity. This William has apparently decided that family unity is a fantasy his brother destroyed years ago. But the identity of this hired gun and the specific tactics they have already begun deploying reveal just how seriously William is treating the Sussex threat, and what they have planned next is even more shocking. For years, the dynamic between these two brothers has followed a predictable pattern that worked entirely in Harry's favor. Harry would drop a bombshell, whether through a carefully timed interview, a memoir revelation, or a strategic leak to friendly journalists. William would stay silent. The palace would issue a terse statement, or no statement at all, and Harry would dominate the news cycle while William absorbed the damage like some kind of royal punching bag. That era is finished, completely and utterly finished. Behind the closed doors of Kensington Palace, William has been constructing something his younger brother catastrophically underestimated. Sources describe it as a sophisticated counter-operation staffed by professionals who cut their teeth in the most brutal corporate and political battles imaginable. These are not courtiers who learned their trade navigating garden party seating arrangements. These are hardened communications warriors who understand that in the modern media environment, the person who controls the narrative controls reality itself. The timing of this strategic shift is no coincidence, and it reveals the careful calculation behind every move William is now making. This comes precisely as Harry's security case against the British government faces what legal observers are calling serious credibility questions. It comes as industry insiders whisper that Harry and Meghan's entertainment ventures have failed to deliver the cultural impact their initial deals promised. It comes as the couple's star power dims, while William and Catherine's rises to levels not seen since the early days of Princess Diana. One source close to the situation offered a particularly cutting assessment. Harry thought he could wage asymmetric warfare forever. He thought he could keep lobbing grenades while William stood there taking the shrapnel. What he did not understand is that William was never passive. He was patient. There is a difference. And now Harry is about to learn exactly what that difference looks like. Allow me to translate what this means in practical terms. Every time Harry's team plants a story designed to damage William or the institution, they now face immediate coordinated pushback. Every legal threat Harry makes now carries consequences he never anticipated. Every attempt to control the narrative now meets a counter-narrative that has been prepared, refined, and positioned for maximum impact. This is not your grandfather's royal family anymore. This is an institution that has decided survival requires adaptation. Sources describe William as done playing defense. Those three words carry more weight than any press release or official statement ever could. They signal a fundamental shift in how the future king intends to protect his family, his reputation, and the monarchy he will one day lead. But to understand why this matters on a practical level, we need to examine exactly who William brought in to lead this operation, and why they are considered virtually untouchable in the crisis management world. The caliber of expertise William has reportedly assembled would make most corporate boards weep with envy. We are talking about a crisis public relations specialist, whose track record includes protecting some of the most powerful and controversial figures in recent memory. This is someone who understands that in the age of social media and 24-hour news cycles, reputation battles are won or lost in the first few hours, not the first few weeks. And they have built their entire career on the principle that the best defense is an absolutely devastating offense. What separates this hire from traditional royal communications is the fundamental approach to information warfare. Old-school palace strategy dictated that royals never complain and never explain. It was a philosophy born in an era when the press could be managed through access and relationships. That era died with the internet, and William has apparently figured out what his father's generation never could. In the modern media landscape, silence is not dignity, silence is surrender. This crisis guru specializes in what the industry calls litigation public relations, a discipline that most people outside corporate boardrooms have never even heard of. The concept is straightforward but ruthlessly effective. While lawyers fight battles in courtrooms where outcomes take months or years to materialize, litigation public relations experts fight the same battles in the court of public opinion where outcomes can be determined in hours. The goal is not to replace legal strategy but to complement it by ensuring that even if you lose in court, you win where it matters most, in the minds of the public. Sources close to Kensington Palace say this hire signals something Harry never anticipated. William is not just prepared to fight his brother in courts, he is prepared to fight him in living rooms, on social media platforms, and in the pages of every tabloid and broadsheet on the planet. One insider described the approach as comprehensive reputation warfare. Another called it the most aggressive posture any member of the royal family has taken in living memory. Let us be brutally honest about what this means for Harry. His entire strategy since leaving the royal family has been built on the assumption that William would maintain the dignified silence that has been the hallmark of royal communications for generations. Harry and his team calculated that they could say whatever they wanted, reveal whatever they wanted, and accuse whoever they wanted without meaningful pushback. That calculation has just been proven catastrophically wrong. The irony here is absolutely staggering. Harry spent years publicly criticizing the palace communications apparatus as outdated and ineffective. He complained that the institution failed to protect him and Meghan from media attacks. And now that same institution, under William's leadership, has upgraded its capabilities to a level that Harry's own operation cannot hope to match. And their first strategic move has already begun, quietly unfolding in ways that are making Harry's legal team extremely nervous. Harry's security case against the Home Office has been presented to the public as a slam dunk, a righteous battle by a prince who simply wants to bring his family safely to his homeland. His lawyers have painted a picture of a man unfairly denied protection that should be his birthright. The media strategy has been clear: position Harry as the victim of bureaucratic pettiness and institutional spite. But folks, the reality behind closed doors tells a dramatically different story, and William's team has allegedly compiled the receipts. Legal experts who have examined the details of Harry's case are noting significant vulnerabilities that his public relations operation has worked overtime to obscure. The central argument, that Harry deserves taxpayer-funded security despite no longer performing official royal duties, rests on shakier ground than his team would like anyone to know. One legal analyst described it as a case built more on emotion than precedent. Another noted that Harry faces an uphill battle convincing judges that his situation merits an exception to established protocols. But here is where William's strategic approach becomes truly devastating. His team has reportedly compiled what insiders are calling a comprehensive dossier of Harry's own public statements that directly contradict his legal positions. Every interview where Harry discussed his safety arrangements, every passage in his memoir that revealed details his lawyers now wish he had kept private, every public appearance where he seemed perfectly comfortable without the security presence he now claims is essential to his survival. All of it documented, all of it organized, all of it ready to be deployed at the strategically optimal moment. The hypocrisy angle is what William's team is apparently most eager to exploit. Sources say the counter-argument, being prepared, is devastatingly simple. How can Harry demand taxpayer-funded protection from the very institution he has spent years publicly attacking, undermining, and attempting to damage? How can he claim to fear for his safety in the United Kingdom while simultaneously claiming he desperately wants to return and reconnect with the country? The contradictions are not subtle, they are glaring, and someone is finally prepared to point them out. One insider offered a particularly brutal assessment. Harry has created a paper trail a mile long that undermines his own case. Every interview, every excerpt, every carefully placed story that was designed to generate sympathy has also generated evidence. His lawyers are reportedly not happy about the situation their client has created for himself. Let that sink in. The very media strategy that was supposed to help Harry has potentially given William the ammunition to hurt him. But the real bombshell is what Williams' team discovered about Harry's behind-the-scenes desperation and the increasingly frantic attempts he has allegedly made to reach family members who want nothing to do with him. Reports have emerged that paint a picture of a man increasingly isolated and desperate for reconnection with the family he spent years attacking. Sources claim that Harry has made multiple attempts to reach Catherine directly, seeking some kind of reconciliation or at least a channel of communication that bypasses William entirely. Every single attempt has been ignored, not rejected with a polite refusal, simply ignored, as if the messages never arrived at all. The detail that has insiders buzzing is the alleged inconsistency in Harry's approach to family communication. According to those familiar with the situation, Harry is simultaneously taking no calls from certain family members who have reached out to him while desperately trying to contact others who have made clear they are not interested. He wants reconciliation on his terms only. He wants to choose who forgives him and when. The entitlement, even in his attempts at bridge building, is apparently breathtaking to those who witness it. William has allegedly taken decisive action to ensure these communication attempts go nowhere. Sources claim he issued a direct order to palace staff that can be summarized in 3 words: shut this down. No messages from Harry are to be forwarded. No attempts at contact are to be acknowledged. The door that Harry kicked open on his way out has been sealed shut from the inside, and William apparently has no intention of opening it, regardless of how many times his brother knocks. The emotional dimension of this situation is where things get particularly complicated. Those close to Harry describe a man who genuinely cannot understand why the family he attacked will not welcome him back with open arms. There is reportedly a disconnect between how Harry perceives his actions and how those actions landed with the people he targeted. He sees himself as a truth teller who had no choice. They see him as a traitor who made a very deliberate choice. These two perspectives are not reconcilable. Allow me to be brutally honest here. Harry appears to have convinced himself that he could publicly accuse his family of racism, reveal private conversations, mock their traditions, and question their judgment, and then simply waltz back in whenever he decided the attacks were over. That is not how human relationships work. That is not how trust works, and it is certainly not how a 700-year-old institution works. One palace insider offered perhaps the most cutting observation of all. He broke something that cannot be fixed with a phone call. He seems to think an apology tour will reset everything. What he does not understand is that some of the people he hurt have decided they simply do not want him in their lives anymore. That is not cruelty. That is a consequence. This rejection triggered something unexpected, a shift in Harry's entire legal strategy that reveals just how rattled he and his team have become. William's new crisis operation functions on a principle that represents a complete departure from traditional royal strategy, and it is driving Harry's team absolutely mad. The approach is called strategic transparency, and it turns the old never complain, never explain philosophy completely on its head. Instead of maintaining dignified silence while attacks land, this methodology involves calculated, precision-targeted leaks designed to undermine hostile narratives before they can take root. The mechanics of this approach are fascinating for anyone who studies modern reputation management. Every time Harry's team plants a story with a friendly journalist, William's crisis guru has a counter-narrative prepared and positioned for release within hours. Not days, not a news cycle later, hours. The speed and coordination have reportedly stunned Harry's public relations operation, which had grown comfortable operating without meaningful opposition. One source described the new dynamic in terms that sound more like military conflict than family drama. It is information warfare, plain and simple. Harry's team fires a shot, and before the echo fades, a return volley lands that is better sourced, more detailed, and more damaging. They are playing checkers. William's people are playing chess at a grandmaster level. What makes this particularly effective is the credibility differential that is developed over the years. Harry and Meghan have a documented track record of claims that have been publicly contradicted or proven exaggerated. The chicken coop story, the secret wedding claim, various timeline inconsistencies that sharp-eyed observers have cataloged in excruciating detail. William's team, by contrast, has maintained a reputation for accuracy that gives their carefully placed narratives more weight with journalists and the public alike. The strategic genius of this approach is that it does not require William to personally engage in any mudslinging. The crisis operation handles the combat while the future king maintains his above-the-fray posture. Harry gets outmaneuvered without ever having a target he can directly attack. It is reputation warfare conducted through proxies, and Harry has no equivalent capability to deploy in response. Insiders say Harry's team is experiencing something they never anticipated, the feeling of being consistently outmatched. For years they operated in an environment where William's side refused to engage, making every news cycle a one-sided affair. Now they face coordinated, professional opposition that anticipates their moves and counters them before they can land. One observer described Harry's public relations operation as bringing a knife to a gunfight without realizing guns existed. But the first major test of this new strategic capability came with a story Harry desperately wanted buried, and what happened next revealed just how seriously outgunned he has become. Harry's legal battle with the Home Office over security arrangements has reportedly hit serious obstacles that his public messaging has worked overtime to conceal. Behind closed doors, negotiations that Harry's team hoped would remain confidential have not gone well, at all. Sources familiar with the situation describe a legal strategy that is encountering resistance at every turn, with decision-makers proving far less sympathetic than Harry anticipated. What has made this situation particularly challenging for Harry is the background context that William's team has allegedly provided to key figures involved in these deliberations. And here is the crucial detail. Everything they have done is completely legal. There is nothing improper about providing accurate information to government officials who are evaluating claims. There is nothing wrong with ensuring that decision-makers have the full picture, rather than just the carefully curated version Harry's lawyers prefer to present. The argument William's team is reportedly making is both simple and devastating. Harry's security concerns are manufactured grievances designed to generate sympathetic media coverage, not genuine threats that require taxpayer-funded responses. The evidence for this position includes Harry's own behavior, his willingness to appear at public events, his extensive media appearances, and his apparent comfort level in situations that would be impossible if he truly feared for his safety to the degree his legal filings suggest. One legal observer offered a particularly blunt assessment of where things stand. Harry's case was always more about public relations than legal merit. He wanted the fight more than he wanted the outcome. Now he is discovering that when you pick a fight with an institution that has survived for centuries, that institution tends to fight back with resources you did not know it possessed. Sources say the private negotiations have been marked by moments of tension that neither side expected. Harry's legal team allegedly entered these discussions believing they held significant leverage. They reportedly discovered that their leverage was largely illusory, based on assumptions about royal behavior that no longer apply. The people on the other side of the table are no longer operating according to the playbook Harry memorized. Let that sink in. Harry launched a legal battle, expecting the institutions he targeted to respond the way they always had, with caution, with concern for appearances, with fear of escalation. Instead, he has encountered something new, a coordinated response that is neither cautious nor fearful. But the most shocking element of William's new strategy is what he is prepared to do if Harry decides to escalate this conflict further, and it represents a nuclear option that could change everything. William's crisis team has reportedly prepared what insiders are calling the nuclear option, a comprehensive response capability that would fundamentally alter the public understanding of Harry and Meghan's entire narrative. This is not a single document or a specific revelation. It is a systematic historical accounting that includes documented instances of alleged exaggerations, verifiable contradictions, and what one source diplomatically described as convenient memory lapses. The strategy behind this preparation is straightforward but ruthless. If Harry releases more material designed to damage William, Catherine, or the institution, William's team releases receipts, not accusations, not counter-narratives, documentation, timelines, evidence that can be independently verified by any journalist willing to do the work. The goal is not to destroy Harry in a single blow, but to create an environment where every future claim he makes is automatically viewed with skepticism. One royal watcher who has followed this family for decades described the shift in stark terms. William is no longer protecting Harry from himself. For years, that protective instinct was the primary reason palace communications stayed silent, even when Harry's claims begged for rebuttal. William apparently decided that some things were more important than his brother's reputation, the safety of his wife, the stability of his children's future, the credibility of the institution he will lead. All of these have now been prioritized above whatever residual loyalty he once felt toward his younger brother. Sources say the dossier includes materials that would be particularly damaging to the Sussexes' carefully cultivated public image, documented instances where public claims contradicted private realities, communications that reveal motivations quite different from those presented in interviews and memoirs, evidence that certain sympathetic stories were not organic revelations but carefully orchestrated media operations designed to manipulate public opinion. Let us be brutally honest about what this represents. This is mutually assured destruction as a deterrent strategy. William is essentially telling Harry that further attacks will be met with responses that make the current tensions look like a minor disagreement. Whether Harry believes this threat remains to be seen, but those familiar with the materials allegedly assembled say the threat is not a bluff. The question that hangs over all of this is whether it ever gets deployed. One insider suggested that the mere existence of this capability, once Harry's team became aware of it, might be sufficient to deter further escalation. Another cautioned that Harry has never shown much capacity for strategic calculation and might blunder into triggering exactly the response he should most want to avoid. But the implications for Meghan are perhaps even more devastating, and what sources are revealing about her current positioning tells a story Harry might not want to hear. Sources close to the situation are painting a picture that should concern Harry deeply. Meghan is allegedly creating strategic distance between herself and her husband's ongoing legal battles against British institutions. Her brand relaunch has focused almost entirely on lifestyle content, entrepreneurial ventures, and celebrity friendships that have nothing to do with royal warfare. The contrast with Harry's continued focus on his grievances could not be more stark. The American Riviera Orchard venture, the Netflix cooking show, the carefully curated social media presence that emphasizes wellness and aspiration rather than victimhood and accusation. All of these represent a Meghan who is building something that does not depend on constant conflict with the British royal family. Meanwhile, Harry continues to fight battles that seem to define his entire public identity. William's crisis team has noted this divergence and is allegedly exploiting it in their counter-messaging strategy. The narrative being quietly promoted suggests that even Meghan recognizes the diminishing returns of perpetual royal warfare, that even the person who many believe drove the initial exit strategy has concluded that the strategy has run its course, that Harry is increasingly alone in his determination to continue a conflict that no one else wants. One insider offered a particularly brutal observation about the dynamic. She is building her exit ramp. He does not even realize he needs one. Whether this assessment is fair or merely palace propaganda designed to drive a wedge between the couple is impossible to know from the outside. But the observable facts support the general thesis. Meghan's public activities have pivoted away from royal content. Harry's have not. The question being whispered in certain circles is both obvious and uncomfortable. Is Harry fighting alone while Meghan constructs a future that may or may not include him? Is the woman who reportedly pushed for their departure from royal life now recognizing that her husband's inability to move past his grievances has become a liability rather than an asset? These questions may be unfair. They may be palace-driven attempts to destabilize the Sussex partnership, but they are being asked. What makes this particularly painful for Harry, if the reports are accurate, is that he appears not to recognize what everyone around him sees. He reportedly believes the legal battles and public conflicts serve his interests. He apparently cannot see that each escalation further damages a brand that was once worth hundreds of millions and is now struggling to remain relevant. All of this leads to one inevitable conclusion that Harry refuses to accept, and it changes everything about how the next chapter of this story will unfold. Prince William has undergone a transformation that will define the British monarchy for generations to come. The patient, long-suffering brother who absorbed years of public attacks without response has been replaced by a strategic operator who understands that survival requires evolution. The heir to the throne has looked at the threat his brother represents and concluded that the old rules no longer apply, and Harry, for all his complaints about being misunderstood, apparently cannot understand what has changed or why. The secret weapon is not just one person or one hire. It is an entirely new approach to dealing with the Sussex threat that recognizes the nature of modern reputation warfare. It acknowledges that silence in the face of attacks is not dignity but vulnerability. It accepts that protecting the institution sometimes requires abandoning the instinct to protect every member of the family regardless of their behavior. These are not small adjustments. They represent a fundamental reimagining of how the British monarchy defends itself. Harry's legal threats now carry a cost he never anticipated. Every filing, every media briefing, every carefully placed story designed to pressure the palace or the government now triggers immediate, coordinated pushback. The asymmetric advantage Harry enjoyed for years, the ability to attack without consequence, has evaporated. He is now fighting an opponent who has studied his playbook and developed comprehensive responses to every page. The royal family's survival instinct, honed over centuries of existential challenges, has kicked into gear. And for the first time in this long conflict, Harry finds himself on the wrong side of that instinct. He is no longer viewed as a wayward family member who needs protection from his own worst impulses. He is viewed as a threat to be neutralized, an adversary to be defeated, a problem to be managed rather than a brother to be saved. Whether this approach is right or wrong is a question reasonable people can debate. Some will argue that William should have maintained the high road indefinitely, trusting that history would vindicate his restraint. Others will contend that he waited far too long to fight back, allowing years of damage that could have been prevented. But the debate about whether he should have done this is now academic. He has done it. The new reality is here. What happens next depends largely on Harry's capacity for self-reflection, a capacity that observers suggest has been notably absent throughout this saga. He can recognize that his leverage has evaporated and seek some kind of negotiated peace where he can continue escalating, triggering responses that will make everything that has happened so far look like a minor prelude. The brother who thought he had all the cards has discovered that the game has changed completely, and the brother who refused to play has finally revealed that he was never weak. He was waiting. Drop your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you will not believe what is coming next.